Earlier this year, Representative Bob Good of Virginia told us that he thought President Biden should be impeached because of his border policies. So I've got to think the events of the last week or so may have even intensified the interest in impeachment process. Let's bring in the good congressman from the 5th District, Bob Good. Thank you for joining us, Congressman.
Great to be with you once again, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Well, I agreed with you then that the border policies themselves are enough for impeachment, and those policies continue, as you know. But now we've got this cynical move by Merrick Garland appointing this special counsel who is part of the problem, David Weiss. He's been investigating the Biden crimes for 5 years, dragging his feet, letting the statute of limitations run out. We now have testimony from IRS whistleblowers corroborated by FBI agents saying that they've been getting mixed messages, if not outright lies, about this investigation. Why should the American people trust that justice is being done here? Isn't it time for impeachment?
The last part of that question, yes, it is time for impeachment, and no, the American people should not trust in this Department of Injustice based on past history. As I think you would agree, setting aside the border invasion, for which the president absolutely should be impeached, but these latest developments or this growing amount of evidence incriminating the Biden crime family, we have not seen anything like this, certainly in modern times, certainly not in our political lifetime. This makes the reasons for which President Clinton was impeached 30 years ago pale by comparison. And it certainly obviously makes a mockery, or an even greater mockery, of the impeachment reasons why that were brought against President Trump, which were political in nature, as we know. But here you have the president having done the very things that President Trump was, I believe, incorrectly accused of talking about on a phone call. This president certainly has done. Jamie Comer and House Oversight Committee are doing a great job, I think, uncovering more and more evidence, doing their best to bring it to the American people.
I saw Speaker McCarthy put out a statement saying that this cynical move of a special counsel is not going to derail the investigations in the House, said that it was really meant to try to slow things up and basically cover up what was really going on. Same thing with Representative James Comer. Congressman Scalise said that. So I know you're all in recess, but is there a delay here? I mean, I expected by now that actually some sort of progress would be made in terms of empowering one of the standing committees to pursue an impeachment process.
Well, I would hope the Speaker would do that. I would hope that he would tell Jamie Comer and the House Oversight Committee, which I think is the committee that it makes most sense to move forward based on what they have uncovered. As you know, tremendous amount of growing, credible eyewitness testimony that's been corroborated by more than one individual. This needs to be brought to the American people. Half the country still, I think, Larry, doesn't even know about this because, as you know, it's not really being covered by the large daily newspapers or some of the large non-conservative networks.
If it is being covered, it's being covered up. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how the day after Biden has a bad news cycle, boom, we've got more indictments against President Trump, and suddenly that's all anybody's talking about.
Yes, as you noted earlier, David Weiss is a deflection, making him special counsel. Even the large daily newspapers or larger papers in my district who have not covered it, they did one little story just recently. They're all owned by the same conglomerate throughout my district, but they focused on Hunter Biden and they focused on his gun charge and his tax evasion charge. They never connected at all to President Biden or the bribery, influence peddling, corruption scandal. So they're trying to make it about Hunter. As you know, the narrative has changed, not from President Biden didn't know anything about his son's businesses, but he wasn't actually in business with his son, is what they're alleging now. And then, of course, like you said, they're trying to deflect with the David Weiss appointment, which we know he hasn't done anything to this point. He's not going to do anything as a special prosecutor either.
Yeah, Congressman Good, you noted the Trump impeachments. I know that you were in Congress for those proceedings, and I note that your Democrat colleagues have suggested that any move by Republicans to impeach President Biden would be just political, just using the impeachment process for political purposes. I wonder if you could sort of contrast these two movements for impeachment. Was there anything political about the Trump impeachment, sir?
I would say so, and it is interesting to hear Democrats talk about Republicans just want to investigate, and when they spent the 4 years of the Trump administration with the phony Russia collusion scandal, that they knew was untrue, and they perpetuated a lie for 4 years. And then, of course, President Trump, setting aside the ridiculous impeachment on the phone call related to Ukraine, when he just had a week left in his term and there was no ability to bring any consequence to him, no ability to have the Senate even attempt to convict him. It was just for retaliatory purposes, for political reasons, the same reasons why you see indictments coming now 2.5 years after January 6th, strictly for political reasons, just trying to wound the person who's the front runner for the Republican nomination.
Congressman Good, your colleague, Mr. Goldman, he's been out there saying that really there's nothing to see here, nothing happened on these phone calls. Biden was just talking about the weather with his son. He's even used this term that Hunter Biden was selling the illusion of access. Now, as a congressman, I'm guessing you need to get read in pretty well on ethics issues there. What's legal, what's not legal, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. As far as you're concerned, these phone calls that Vice President Biden participated in and the money that flowed in from those who were on the other end of those phone calls, even if they were just talking about the weather, which I doubt, just the fact that they made money off of that access, in your mind, is that against congressional ethics? Is that against the ethic laws in this town?
No question about it that it is. That this, again, influence peddling itself, selling access to the president. And you have to wonder, once again, the millions of dollars the Biden crime family made off Ukraine corrupt business dealings. How's that impacted the billions of dollars we have sent to Ukraine?
Yeah.
The millions of dollars that the Biden crime family has made off Chinese business relationships. How has that impacted the fact that we call China now a competitive partner instead of an adversary? We won't confront China. We won't criticize China. We're surrendering to China effectively on the world stage. We're being embarrassed by China. How has that been impacted by the millions of dollars this administration has made, or excuse me, this family has made from corrupt Chinese business deals?
Yeah, and by the way, since you bring up Ukraine, there is now a move for an additional funding package, as you know. I think it may be the first time you have the ability to vote on this standalone, because usually they like to wrap Ukraine funding in with, hurricane relief in Florida. Right. Where do you stand, and if you could, where you think the Freedom Caucus, at the very least, if not the entire Republican caucus, stands on more funding for Ukraine?
I think there's a healthy amount of skepticism for more funding for Ukraine in the Republican conference, certainly in the conservative side, and I believe among my colleagues in the House Freedom Caucus. Setting aside, again, whether or not you think that the Ukraine war is our war, if it's our fight, what the U.S. role is versus the European role, whether or not we should be going to war with to defend a non-NATO country, what the exit strategy, the end game is, what success looks like, what the level of U.S. involvement should be, all those sorts of things that can be debated. And I happen to be on the side where I don't think it's our national security interest or it justifies our involvement or our willingness to risk nuclear war with Russia. All of that said, should we be borrowing money from China to send it to Ukraine? Should we be borrowing money from China or from our kids and our grandkids to defend Ukraine's border when we're not spending any resources to defend our own border? Should we be depleting the resources and the readiness of our own military at a time when we've been weakened by this administration to send resources over to Ukraine? I think the answer to all of those is no.
Congressman, finally, as we approach the Republican debate next week, I want to ask all of the politicians I get from so-called swing states or purple states, their impression of where things are heading. First of all, do you believe Virginia is back in play now, considering the fact that Republicans won statewide with Governor Youngkin's popularity sky high right now? Is Virginia a swing state in 2024?
I hope we're going to get an indication that that is even to a greater extent the case here in November. As you know, we have state elections, our full General Assembly, House of Delegates, House of Senate. We've got races up. And so my hope would be we're going to take the Senate. We're going to increase our numbers in the House, give Governor Youngkin a working majority in the state legislature. And I think Virginia could be a test case for the country. Virginia is purple, leans a little blue, but we had a big victory last year, as you know. And my hope is, 2 years ago, and my hope is we'll have another big victory here in November and show where the country is, that the country is waking up to who the Democrat Party is, how this is not the Democrat Party of our parents and our grandparents. These are extremists. They hate the country. They hate the founders. They hate the Constitution. They're trying to make us into a communist, socialist, totalitarian state. And these harmful policies that are crushing middle-class families, that are direct, the harm that we're suffering at the grocery store, when you're trying to make your house or your rent payments, the interest rates, the utility prices, gas prices, and so forth, that's a direct result of Biden policies. And hopefully Virginia will send us a huge message that's a precursor rehearsal for what will happen next year.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. We will touch base with you again, especially when you get back into session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Larry. Great to be with you again.
There is more to come on O'Connor tonight. Keep it here. You're watching Salem News Channel.